Hi. Okay, Mr. Park is here, we're going to bow and then we're going to rise when it comes down. All right? Okay, this is going to be a really informal session up to a point, so everybody come up and sit down, and let's start again with our history lesson. Now come up, just form around so you can hear. Come close. Stay within the senior people come up front. Everybody else gather around. Now, we left with the idea that the mind is an organ of survival. Like fangs, claws, and talons. We use beliefs, not facts, and we use emotions and feelings in place of logic. Kata performances extend to an exquisitely state of extreme standards, but violate the rule of intention, functionality, and real combat strength and purposes. The bad knees and bad shoulders demonstrate the residual physiological damage. That's what we ended with. The Kwanmukan centralizes the core principle of martial arts and externalizes or peripheralizes the non-vital and extreme in its basic principles and standards. In the Kwanmukan, we try to achieve the ability to apply concise standards, practicing defenses and preemptive attack, and distribute properties such as coercion and coercion. This can be fed to a related, integrated, and quantifiable rotational shift on a common circumference point. Now, what this means is this. Let's talk about some of the method of thought that we're going to attempt to use. We know that if I said somebody at random to come in and explain to me, to put symbols up here that means 3. And they'll generally go 1, 2, and 3. This doesn't mark very well, so let me go to one of my scribblers here. This is probably more scribbles. Okay, this is what you see, 1, 2, and 3. But you know that that is not what little kids think about and not what you think about in your entire life. Our entire life is built with purpose, the fact that we were born and die, there's a beginning and an end. So in that sense, 3 would be this way. Right. Referring to the minimal, the most, or the most and the least, if you want. And this being the center. We now have 1, 2, and 3. So a straight line to your mind is always 3. It has a center, it has a maximum line and minimum line. Now the argument has been, the philosophical argument, that what was before the beginning? And the guy said nothing, it wouldn't be the beginning. And they say, how far back is the beginning as far as I can measure? So as your ability to perceive changes, the central point changes. See, if I take the line to go down this way, then the center drops down about here. Now this is one way to look at things. It is by no means the only way. We could also take the entire area within our ability to see it and go this way. You see, now the Chinese, in their sense, they have gone this way, which is the moving lines of force, the natural lines of force. But we could take the 4 parts and say we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we were to divide the martial arts into areas, we could just say we're going to take it, we're going to half it, and we're going to quarter it. And so everything would lie within the representative area. And you guys say, well, that's not exactly right. Of course it's not, because you people in mathematics know that these things are in dynamic flux. Now, if we're going to talk about the various styles of karate, say we have 4 martial arts. Just for example, say we have karate, and we have the jiu-jitsu, and we have the aiki, and we have the kobudo. The training that traditionally has been in karate has been this way. We don't agree with that philosophy because that doesn't take us enough journey. So we believe the Gestaltist idea of this way is correct. And this idea is called circle and point, as opposed to this linear training. Now, the trouble with this kind of thinking is if we have, for example, we call this Budo or Budo, let's just call this the Central Martial Arts, let's call it MA. And we have, within this area, we have karate over here as a sport. Now this is a core knowledge curriculum. Then, to establish this sport, we have all the things, like a magnet, and all the things of this martial arts. I've got a problem here. Whose phone is that? Mine? No. Okay, all the martial arts are within this thing here. This is a magnet, and it attracts all the pieces that fit it, like this way. So karate then indeed attracts the sections of the martial art that are fitted. The same thing over here, we could say if we had jiu-jitsu, it would attract the parts of the martial art that then become, that are connected to it. In the meantime, the core knowledge curriculum is of great concern to us. So what is the core knowledge curriculum, and how do we arrive at what that is supposed to be? And we have, for that type of thing, a conceptual framework. Now the conceptual framework is very important to us because the conceptual framework is what really gives us our methods and our intent. See, and it's the way we go about this kind of thing. And maybe I could, no, I don't think you need to read this to you. I can just simply tell because I know what it is anyway since I wrote it, you know. Is this stuff, that's kind of funny stuff because one time I was picked up a piece of paper and I thought the thing was absolutely so brilliant. I couldn't believe it. I thought, oh my God, this is good. So I started making notes and making more notes, and when I got to the end, it said George Anderson, Manila. And I didn't realize it was actually me, you see. So, so you have to look at that. But anyway, our conceptual framework, if you will, talks about the geniform. And so we'll use gene here. And that means that we're going to understand about the body. And we're going to understand what you have, and the slow twitch and fast twitch, and of course your biomechanical body and your bioelectrical advantage, how much your muscle contract and the brain signals, and all the things that fit with the physical. Okay. Now then we're going to have what we call the schema form. And you write better than I do, Brian. But anyway, the schema. That develops Piaget's developmental schema idea that you perceive something, and those are called percepts. And we could, once they're sort of digested into your memory a little bit, then they call them factoids, which are a little bit of unsubstantiated information. And those groups of unsubstantiated information then look into your basic knowledge, and we call it the schema base, even though it used to be called the connotative base. We have the base, and they try to find patterns that it can connect to. And if it connects to those patterns, then it becomes part of your information. If not, then it creates a pattern. This is a reading, look up the ceiling, you see faces in the ceiling, faces on apples and stuff like it. The mind's affinity for patterns. And so this schema is what you put into there enables you to see other things. For example, if something really important was written in Greek here and something unimportant was written in English, of course, I'll read the English, which is maybe wrong. So as you go hunt somebody who reads Greek. You say, then maybe so this is the kind of thing. So you start assigning values to the ability of yours to recognize certain kind of ideas. And that's not good. And then we worry about the last thing is meme, memoform. Now memes is a modern term pretty much made by Dawkins and by Blakemore in England. Now it's quite accepted. It's for little bits of information that are passed on in a manner analogous to the replication of genes. And the gene is kind of 1920 maybe, this comes maybe 1980 or 85, where they started working with computer replications. And all these things you see favor a certain kind of base. Whatever the base is, they favor the base, which is of course the Heisenberg's principle that you're looking at things changes it. Now, if you can't see something with this, what you do, you become functionally blind, or if you have the wrong dysfunctional pattern, they become what you call perceptual rigidity, or another word for prejudice against something. These three things go together, and we don't know whether these are developed until we apply the standards. See? And the standards then are really important for the development of these things. Though they're not supposed to be more important than, well, let's put it this way. I'll say it another way. That what's on the test always assumes more importance than the stuff that's left off the test. So if you set the standard as a form of testing, then the guys will simplify that and teach to the standards. Whereas in reality, this is you'll be able to show some kind of analysis. Like, for example, we had a guy, as I said earlier, we have a guy who wants to jump. And he says, yes, I jump. And I said, good. It's an athletic jump, right? I said, why would you want to jump? The guy said, well, is it possible you might want to jump because I'm going to crack your ankles with this stick? The guy says, yes. I said, so I got the stick, and so I want you to jump. And immediately they go down. Well, anybody with knowledge knows that when you drop, they're going to hit you when you drop. You look for that drop, right? The guy goes to punch, he goes his hand back. So when you're doing kata and you're stepping forward from here, the kata goes this way. It doesn't come ever this way. Particularly for that kind of function, for speed. So the standards are only an indicator that these things are in place, and sometimes the cleverness of the school and the great concentration on exact standards, they assume a value that they're not supposed to have. All they are is a way to look at something. It's like taking your wife and you think you're, well, everybody, I can't say that's it's not good. I'll say it. And you know, you're dating this girl, you think she's just absolutely gorgeous, see? So you take her to your friends say, where'd you get that ugly girl? And then you look at the girl, and then all of a sudden she's not so good looking anymore. It's that kind of thing, right? Well, you guys know how it is, you know. My wife loved beauty when she was 20 years old. Now she's 78, she's still a beauty. But not other people can see that, see? I see it, but maybe other people don't see it that way. They see an old lady. I don't see an old lady, I see a beautiful wife. You do the same. Yes, sir. See, this is the thing that, so these standards aren't meant to be standalone. They merely reflect this value. Now, this then, if it's correctly in place, causes a cognitive restructuring. Restructuring. Now, a perfect example would be that a guy who's Irish and has the amygdala over on the side of the brain here, the little walnut side thing, and for some reason or other, when the adrenaline strikes that, the guy has no fear and and absolutely no fear and no pain. And then we have another person that maybe like standing on this chair, and when it goes up in the air, his amygdala screams and dumps hormones and hypothalamus, and the guy falls off the chair. They're two entirely different kinds of people. So with the cognitive restructuring, you see things for what they are a little more. You might see one guy is liking to fight and having great success with it because he's fought all the time. Then on the other hand, you have a man who maybe doesn't like to fight at all and really doesn't like pain too much, but if you hit the trigger, they're going to kill you because he's trained. So you have the two entirely different types of thing, a way of looking at the same thing. So sometimes guys say, he's a tough guy. I said, no, he's not tough, he just likes to fight. And everybody from West Virginia knows what that's like. You know? The guy who says, this is a private fighter, can anybody get in? It must be hard for that. So then this permits the virtual reality to occur. Now, this virtual reality is the important point. Because everything you do is in this virtual reality. Everything's here. Everything's here. This is the total thing. And all this training stuff is here so that you can create one that really functions. And your nerves or nothing would make the idea, you would understand what you're saying. Your foot talking to your mind, and they don't understand that kind of stuff. So it takes, from the time you're born, it takes about maybe 7 or 8 years before you realize that this hand can talk to this foot. And of course, that's one trouble with karate. This hand and this foot aren't connected. This hand and this foot aren't connected. And we have other things that aren't connected. Okay? Now, you think you're really connected. I know you do, and you have a connection. Where's your connection? It's in the hara, right? So we have drills that make people humble. Don't we? Now, we're just going to stand up and let's pick some really humble guys, and we'll let them do the drill, okay? So why don't you stand up, clear the mask, and let's have some very, very humble people. Okay. Let's have some very humble people here. The people that want to have a very strong stomach and a very strong center over here. Let's have some of the higher ranks here. Come on. Who's coming? Everybody afraid? Come on. Where's Peter Peck? Where's Peter? Peter!
I'm not humble, I can't be open.
Master Peck, come on.
He's not humble.
He's right here.
Okay, let's have some 8 thons out here. Let's go. Come on, hurry up. I don't want you, David. Okay, let's have some higher. Tommy, get out of here. Bobby Buckles, get out of here. Hey. Come on, Burns.
He told me he didn't
No,
want
right next to you. I'm not
Come on, Burns, right out here. Let's see, who else we going to get? Let's get some other really important guys who we know that are really, really important and have been frothed at the mouth to do this. I know you are. You just want to get out there. You can't stand the fun. And, what's wrong with you? Oh, no, we don't do it now. Okay, you guys, just turn around. Face that way. And just turn around. Get in line. Back in that line. Camera is not there. Right here. This is your camera. Okay, now this is a standard drill. Everybody does it. They get down and lay their back.
Oh, no, it's his. We'll dump it to DVD right
Like
away.
this. Bring your feet up, cross your ankles. Cross your ankles. Okay, goodbye. See you down there. Go. No, that way. Like this way.
Oh, man.
No better to one.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's
You're 12, I've been to too many of these things.
Oh, come on. Go up the red.
Don't stop now, Lance. Come on, Lance. Beat him, Lance.
Come on. All right. Now, you guys still... Lance, let it over. You know, Lance, actually, can I tell you, he posed for Playgirl magazine. Okay. Bobby?
Hey.
You didn't get all the way up down the floor. John? Oh, you're taking pictures. Come on, hang your down. Get on the floor. Hang your feet. Open up a little more. Go that way. Okay, now Lance is a 50-year-old man. You know this. Go, let's go. Let's go. Control, let's go.
Mr. Butler!
Well,
Give me an inside.
that's enough. Well, the problem is this. The problem I'm presenting to you, what did you learn? And you can't put your finger on it. You can't tell me exactly what it is that you learned. In either of those programs, you're to do this. And both of these drills, as I said before, are the question of centering. They're the question of hard, the tanan, and here. When you do a technique like Tanasuki, from here. And so you learn the centering. Now you do this with Aikido people, they just drag you all over the floor. But because of our training, and Lance is a team member, you can see the type of thing. So if you now were, for example, at higher rank, is defeated constantly by the junior rank, what does that mean? There was something similar to remembering a joke better than your father. It means nothing. But you must understand the first necessity for settings. Okay, back on the floor. Okay. So this virtual reality is what we're looking for.
Get out of your way, man. I'm just gonna grab this.
Now, this is I would advise you to learn this very quickly, because this is a lecture that I've given in Japan. That everybody's 8th thumb and above, and they took notes. And even today, you see Uchiyagi or Kenny Mabuni or something, they're copying my thing. Hi, Michael. Michael Osho from Nigeria is living in Ghana now, or is that Nigeria? And he had a hard time getting him. By the way, Jim Caldwell, where's Jim?
He must have just stepped out.
He was just here.
Yeah, well, in any event, we have, you know, that Janet got down there pretty quick at the place. But anyway, let's take the martial arts and split the martial arts into 4 pieces. But before we do that, let's look at the martial arts. That's premature, actually. For our line, we have, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll do something else. I'll go back again. Yeah, fickle. You see, that's one advantage. I get to be fickle. You know, I get to be fickle. But let's put the China here. Put Japan here, Okinawa here. Okinawa. And let's put Korea here. Now, the techniques came out of China about the time of Christ, and they connected up with the Greek techniques, about 500 in Bodhidharma, and that was an archetype, and it may or may not have existed. But in any event, they connected up with them, and became a formal part of the Chinese patterns. And that went on to about the year 1000, give or take, with a great master, actually was a druggist or a herbalist, being taught by the great grandmaster Zhao, and so he then split away in the Tai Chi, and the Tai Chi that we had at that time, the Chuan Fa, the Tai Chi went up here someplace. The rest of the stuff went down here, and that was a Chuan Fa. And this Chuan Fa entered into Okinawa about 1500, and then 1800 became very, very strong. And this, of course, is just this is from here. Then went from here, from Okinawa, you see, to a place called Japan later. And that was much, much later, and from Japan to the U.S. But from Okinawa, these two were very strongly connected, and it went from Okinawa directly to Korea, from China directly to Korea. And in Korea, then, by the relationship here, had a relationship this way. So the Korean people that feel they trained in Japan were actually doing Okinawan martial arts, Kankan Toyama, and those people, Funakoshi, were actually Okinawan people. They were not Japanese people. The Japan, the only thing in Japan was Yawara, a form of jiu-jitsu, and some other things, but it didn't have, as we know, any of these sports. Down here from this area originated Jiu-Jitsu, which later became known as Judo, much later. So in this Okinawa Chinese area, those are the areas that are of interest to us. And when they went to Japan, they changed, and when Japan went to Korea, then you have this big connection of these two things here, mostly going to Korea, and then some of them going to Japan, assuming the idea of Japan. The forms changed. Now, what this really means is this way. In North China, the major means of transportation was horses, right? In South China, the major means of transportation was boats. Okay, so there was a this is South China, of course, you understand. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, now this became, you said Shorin, or Shumlung, or what do you want to call it, or we could say it'd be Shorin, and this became Nahate. Now, when they went to Japan, or Okinawa, this transferred over, it went to what you call Shuri. And, of course, this down here went to Naha. And it sounds like they're really far apart, but they're more like maybe the same city, maybe 10 miles apart. They're not very far apart. And so when the World Union considered this karate, they figured they'd accept this as Shotokan would be their accepted style, a representative style. And the representative style for this would be Goju-Ryu. Now, obviously, we've talked about extensions, so they want to split this in 4 pieces to accompany everything. So on this side, they have the Wado-Ryu. On this side, they put Shito-Ryu. So you had representative techniques. You had Jian and Kwanku Dai, you had Wado, you had Shito, you had Basai-Dai, and the Senshin, and here's Seipai and Seifa, and over here you had the Hengetsu and Shinto. And there were the 2 things, and each one of those had a different form of Kihon. One thing, Kihon was this way, another would be this way, another would be picking it up from here, another would be picking it up from here, and one would be stepping like this way, another one would be coming this way. And actually, if you make a big action, the hand is from here, it's really this way, almost in front of you. The hand's from here and down this way. So these would all have an individual characteristic. So on the World Union, you had to do two forms of the key bone, or the style of the fundamentals, of two here, and two here, and two here. And that would give you your 8th degree. See, two forms in each section. Now, this has tremendous impact on the modern training. It wouldn't seem that it would, being so esoteric, but it does. And because if we would take in the same idea and we split the martial arts, I'm going to do it this way, a little different. No, let's do it this way. Now let's change it. We're going to split the martial arts, but first off, let's put a circle here and call this karate. And we'll put another circle here and we'll call this jujitsu. Well, where they interlap this section is a thing called kazushi, which is actually, where's your Rhodes?
Yes, sir.
Jeff? See, like, I'm going to get it over. If I'm going to use it, punch. You see, that is pretty much the, sorry, show your punch again. And I like to do it, but we'll punch hard. You see, this is a form of kazushi. And it's a really kind of simple action. But, so this is this area in here. Now, if we put this together and we say down here, we're going to call this Aiki. Obviously, Aikido and Jiu-Jitsu have a relative factor, right? And then we put the Kobudo, and once again, we have a relative with the karate and the Kobudo, and this in here is bound by the Kumitachis. So you pretty much have the Kwanmukan symbol, if you will, of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in doing this, you notice that these sections I have here are the lines of, the moving lines of force, if you will, that are they're used in Chinese philosophy for really centuries. This here. I didn't make a very good stick, but this is the way lines of force. And this being the philosophical center of the universe. Okay? Now, if this were indeed karate, we could say that this is sport based on karate. Jiu-jitsu, this is sport based on jiu-jitsu. This is sport based on Aiki. You see, now remember, these are styles, and you say, well, this looks Japanese. It doesn't. But remember, we're talking about the Chinese base of this type of thing. So, if we're indeed going to do that, and we'll draw a line like this, and we say that this does represent karate, and this does represent the jiu-jitsu, and this does represent the Aiki, and this does represent Kobudo, then we have to understand that if I'm, say, in the Wateroo style, and I'm doing a style that's Kazushi, prana, that has Kazushi within a form, then I'm starting my training from here. Because this is where Kazushi, I'm close to Jiu-Jitsu, we share a common value in this manner. So I would be training here. Now, if I'm in Shotokan, I would be training this way to the center. He's representing dawn rays, if you will. I'm down here. And this has no connection to either this, or this, except in the center, which is Jiu-Jitsu Kenken. That's the only time this will be considered. And if I'm doing Shitoru system, then I'd be ranking this way. All of these say that they are linear techniques and they are not tainted by other jitsu. So, for example, there's a bunkai of technique. There's always a bunkai of technique. But the Shotokan people don't accept it. They say there's a meaning for it. This is a low defend, for example, where in reality, this is not a low defend. You all know that. See? But they say that it is. And the same thing here. As we do with the Wado, we have a different system. Now, we disagree with that because that is really limiting, and that means you have to do that over and over and over and over until it actually turns your mind, and your schema base can't perceive anything but that. So you can't see anything but that. So what we would try to do is, again, we start from here. I know who that is. Listen.
I think it's the one you gave me.
Is that the one I gave you?
Yeah, but you're not calling
Where'd
me,
it go?
so no, it's fine. Just
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Here.
No, no, no.
Come on, I don't want my phone. Anyway, so if we're starting, we start a person in karate. Actually, it goes the other way. But we first do a karate practice. And then we take him and we move him into jiu-jitsu. A little bit of aikido, back into kobudo, and we keep developing this way. And our grades then are, instead of ranking linearly, are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. We expect you to fall into those parameters. For example, you can't really enter high rank unless you've had some understanding of the jiu-jitsu and the aikido and the kobudo. So this means that we now have a core knowledge curriculum that must contain those things that are necessary for the other arts. It isn't enough to consider just one thing. We can't just say that's karate. We have to assume that there's a core knowledge, as I said before. And we have a core knowledge curriculum with all kinds of information built up, and this information consists of the schema and your ability to understand it. Then, using these understandings, we can then proceed to teach karate, jiu-jitsu, or kobudo, using these different understandings. Now, one of those understandings, David, come here. So, as we worked before, is that he's going to attack me with a like one step, okay? Hey! Hey! And I step here. Well, the answer, let's do it again so you can see it. Watch. Right from here so you can watch. Hey! Hey! What am I doing back here? What? Well, maybe one back there. Why wouldn't I do it this way? Hey! Hey! What's wrong with this? Watch again. Watch the difference. Hey! Hey! One this way. What's wrong with this way? Hey! Hey!
Distance.
Well, from here, you see, he's within my grasp. But here, he's not within my grasp. Furthermore, I've took his kick. And here, he can kick me. So why in the world would I step back like that? Furthermore, street fighting is no good either. I mean, you get banged up against the wall or something, you know. So the stepping back might be good. Hey! If I were to step back this way, you see, because that then allows me to move. I use Jeff again. I can Brian, but he hasn't been bouncing me for a while. And so when he punches me, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull his hand and pull him through. Just watch my body balance here when I pull him. Hey! See, just like that, I'm just standing. Now I can watch again. Hey! See, I'm just right here. I don't need to take, so I moved myself, but I moved off center. So the ruling on judo is when you're pushed, what do you do? What do you do when you're pushed? Turn, right? That's a principle. Judo, when pushed, turn. When they pull, what do you do? On the oblique. So he comes up here again, Lance. Hey. Lance grabs my hand, and he pulls me. Like he's going to hit me here. But two, I'm here. Isn't that what I should be doing? Right here. So why do other things like that? Shouldn't that be incorporated? So if we're checking the system for your thing, and we see that you're not stepping forward on the oblique, and you're not turning when you push, then we're going to ask you why. That's why, just simply why. And the answer was, usually we'll say that isn't what I was taught. Now we have a problem with the instructors. Isn't that correct? The guy says, okay, I want you to, here's a lot of wood, I want you to break with a stack of wood. And Johnson Park from Canada used to take 5 boards together and go, pop. But we have guys in here that they could take 3 boards in their hand like this, go splat, and knock them without any trouble. A good break. Jeez. Where'd you get it, Jimmy? I'm sure that's, so. That's him.
Janet? Hello?
That's the guy.
Hello.
We're talking about, I'm listening to this, you're talking about kata and how you're trained by the kata to avoid these general circumstances. So you should have a feeling for these things if you want to do something else. If we're going back over here and we're talking about a guy's only doing karate, well, he can't really ever be completely knowledgeable about the martial arts. And the guys in jiu-jitsu only can't be completely knowledgeable of martial arts. You have to be able to understand these other elements. That when you're pushed, you turn, and when you pull, you step forward on the pulley. Those are standards.
This does the same thing, I'm sure.
Holy stuff. We got a guy from Nepal, you know Janet, and he got in, they closed the turnpikes, and he's on his way in, he's up in Cleveland now, and we got to mess with it. And who is it? If they don't need us, tell them not to.
Flo.
That's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same call. Jim, can you
It's the
take care
same
of that?
call, because they're all his
You don't know where
phones.
it is.
Where is it?
Fifth and, it's on Ninth and Chester. Is anybody from Cleveland here? You are? You know where it is? Anybody know where Ninth and Chester is?
I'll be glad to drive if they can.
Anybody know?
I know where it
You
is.
know? Bye. You're gonna go pick up the camera.
Mike?
Go with him. Yeah, go with him. He's in the bus station there.
Oh, bus station, right?
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Okay. So anyway, so here we are again, going back to the point that we have a core knowledge curriculum. Now in this core knowledge curriculum, we trim off a lot of information. And we separate the things as athletic, okay, as athletic, and then what would be the other thing against different than athletic? Well, we could put a third in there. Let's make the third line. We like this: athletic at one end, salubrious in the middle. That means healthy, for your health only, and that would include yoga and the stretching that we do, the stretching patterns, the pelvic balancing and things like that, which is really sort of part of the athletic, of course. But there's another thing. What is it? What? The philosophical, absolutely. Now, in the philosophical, then we have a problem. Because down here, we have to figure out whether we're going to use the, what are you going to call the practical, rational, or whether we're going to use the empirical ideas. Okay. The guy says, well, I tried it 50 times, and it didn't work for me. I'm not going to do it. And then Bill Wallace stands up and says, well, if you practice this kicking, you're going to be able to kick like me. That ain't going to work either. But philosophically is another thing. And this philosophical understanding are extraordinarily important. Extraordinarily important. But they're not to be fooled around with by the beginner. You don't want to bring this up at the beginning level. This is for the higher ranked people to talk about it. Just like the rationalism, and the guy says that's a good technique. He says, yeah, it exists in your mind only. I mean, you can't do it. Now, give me one example of something that might exist in your mind that apparently you can't do. Does anybody have an idea? Let's talk about jump kicking. That you cannot do jump kicking. We could set up a drill here and have you all doing jump kicking. And very few of you could really do it. You know, like Mr. Hickey can jump up and kick the bag 6 times before he lands. Maybe he can jump 5 times and do a side kick before he lands on the floor. You can do that? Well, see, the landing is the key. The landing's the problem. A lot of people can jump and they can't land. So, like we used to go down by Brian's house, over there at the Place Park, the guy jump off the dock, you know, and he had beautiful jump kicks. Everybody had beautiful jump kicks and they landed in the water. You see? Because they were so afraid of landing in their mind that it began so they couldn't do this type of thing. So the philosophy, the idea you take in your mind, the rationalist philosophy, you can and you can't do this kind of thing, becomes a problem. So a guy says, I can't jump. And we don't really mean he can't jump, it means he can't land. So June Reed had a good idea for that practice, didn't he, David? What was his idea about landing?
Hopping up and down on one foot 100 times.
Yeah, get up in the morning and hop on each foot 100 times. That was his idea. Okay, now, that is the end of this little lecture. There's no more in this, except that the core knowledge curriculum is a critical point. Other things are based on the core knowledge curriculum. We use the circle and point ideas, and the techniques come from northern and southern China, and you use the same diagram that lay out the 4 different parts of the martial art. And so that's why a really well-trained person has no trouble in any area. But we do run into one kind of a problem. We have guys that train and train and train, and you can tell them a story, can't you? We were out there in in the gathering, I think that's Bruce Chutnick's thing out in Sacramento.
Yes, sir.
Like that. And this old Chinese guy from Hawaii was watching. We got all done. He says, you guys are the only guys doing, the karate guys are the only ones doing the kung fu, and the kung fu guys weren't doing anything.
And there were about
That's pretty much the way it went,
1,200
right?
Kimpo and Kung Fu people. There were about 1,200 Kimpo and Kung Fu people there.
And of that, there are about 3 of the Kwanmukan people that can do things. So I had one of the guys saw me and he said, wow, he says, you're the greatest Kung Fu master I've seen in the United States. I said, no kidding. So I got a 10th down from the Wallam Tai Chi and the Hong Kong Dragon, which is national, give them to me big certificates. You know, you just didn't know my office. Because of the way we do things, we have the core knowledge. If the core knowledge isn't there, I don't care what you're doing. You can do the most beautiful one-step fighting and everything else. If the core knowledge isn't there, it's just simply not there. And if you're in doing the core knowledge, your mind says, I want to do a little jujitsu, I want to do some judo, I want to do this, great. Because that means that we're successful. Then we have the other things, like whether you're doing it for military, whether you're doing it for peace officers, or, or something like that, right? Or that kind of thing. But this is, that's really all I have to say, and I'm not going to belabor it anymore. I can ask your people one question, and I do. Why is tightness in the shoulders, well, I don't need to write that, considered so bad in the martial arts?
It inhibits speed.
What?
It inhibits speed.
It inhibits speed in what way?
Going from point A to point B.
Why does it inhibit speed? What? Well, of course attention, but why? See, if you're punching like this, and you start this kind of a punch, and you start throwing the kind of a punch, what happens is your muscle contracts, and then to receive another order, because there's a double thing, contracts, relaxes, contracts again. So there's 2 contractions of that particular action. And to make, one has to relax before it can recontract. And the relaxation takes longer than the actual contraction. So when anything you do that causes this part of your body to tension up, causes an inability to move, it in effect freezes you, right? So then we could use you like you did. We'll just do this. One of my little simple class was this one, and this is very simple. And to say we're in, as I've done with many of the big top people, would like this. And so he's just going to stand there and be my guinea pig, right? And I'm going to have no trouble walking up and hitting him. None. As a matter of fact, I could stand back here, and I could walk up and hit him. Could I not? Be no problem. One. Is that true? So I could close my eyes and do it too, right? And I could step back over here and close my eyes. And the same thing. Wouldn't I? A little bit off. Okay, so let's talk about this way. 1, 2. I could close my eyes from here and hit him this way. Is that not correct? And I could actually step back here and close my eyes, walk up and whack him. Well, I can do better than that. Come closer. Let's try it again. Well, it's not bad. I could come closer than that. And my eyes are completely closed. Is that right? But my eyes aren't closed. Never. Because my mind is open. And when I look at him, all of a sudden everything's in memory. And that's what everything is in you. So I'd like you to get a partner, stand up your partner, and 1, 2. And wait a minute, don't go yet. Then I want you to look at your partner, close your eyes, and 1, 2. Then I want you to do it. Not yet, like this way. Watch. I'm walking up. Okay. Get a partner and try it. If you have trouble with that, that's some kind of tension. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. We always have a board of nails. And you punch the board and you take the chalk off of your knuckles. Then we used to have guys like that with an apple here. That's what we used to do. We never did anything else. This lecture is a major lecture. It's great.
I learned a lot. I really learned a lot. Thank you. All right, you got me. Hit me.
Okay, now, I thought I had trapped you. I knew I trapped you. I got you trapped. What did you doing wrong? What's the big, big, big mistake? Come here. Watch. Big mistake. Watch. Hey! Where's your key eye? You have to have the key eye. Did I hear one key eye besides me? Who asked me when I was doing it, Mr. Anderson, where's your key eye? Where's the key eye? It has to be attached. Go ahead.
You okay? What you do?
I heard that ain't doing something.
Okay, now, you know, we're talking about core knowledge curriculum, right? Now, what if I'm going to punch you? Am I going to go this way? Or am I going to go this way? Well, what am I going to do? And when I take my shot here, if you're looking like that, I have an optic nerve here. You know, like the Ball Fine Institute in Toronto does that. And so I'm looking in within my